Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to DT Performance. I'm excited. I've got a drive line. It means we're moving forward. We're going to get that installed today. But not only that, we're going to check our operating angle. I'm going to check 3 points on the truck. I'm going to check the crank pulley, the output shaft on the transmission, as well as the pinion yoke. And then I'm going to talk about some things you can do if your angles doesn't come out right. So let's go over here and look at the drive shaft, look at the tools we're going to use today, and we'll get started in the video. So here's the showpiece today. I got my drive shaft about 2 weeks ago. I've been out of town, hadn't got it installed yet, so I thought it'd be a good time to make a video. You can see these other parts. What's going to come up next is going to be the drive shaft loop. Now, I'm going to leave the link to this drive shaft loop in the description box, and some of you are going to have some questions. Donald, how big is your drive shaft? It's a 3.5-inch drive shaft. It's got 1350 universal joints, Spicer. And if you watch my TH400 build series, I've got the Sonax billet yoke. So the question is going to be, will this fit this? This is actually a Summit brand drive shaft loop. Will it fit this drive shaft? So just to answer that question right out of the gate, yes it will. Even if you put the bolts in here, you've got about a 1/2 inch on each side. And you'll see that in the next video. So enough about the next video. Let's talk about this video. So in this video, I'm going to be measuring some angles. And there's several ways you can do that. You can go to Harbor Freight and get one of these floating angle finders. This is not a Starrett or a Starrett. It's just a cheap angle gauge from Harbor Freight. You can use one like this. The only downside of this, it does not show decimal points. So if it's a critical angle and you may be close to a no-go on your driveline angle, you may want to go with one of these digital. You can pick these up at any big box store. I got this one ironically at the Orange store. So I'll go through a brief tutorial of how to use this. It's quick and easy to set up. But if you've got a cell phone, you can also use your cell phone. But the thing about a cell phone is it does not show decimal points either. And we'll take a look at that. We'll go over here to the truck and get set up, and I'll show you the angles on the crankshaft. Then we'll go to the output shaft, pinion shaft, install the drive line. And there's one app that you can put on this phone. It is called the Tremec Toolbox. And basically, you use your phone, you'll take a measurement from the output shaft, the drive line, down to the pinion, and it will give you either 3 greens or it'll tell you where your angles are off at. I am going to be using a piece of flat bar. This is going to be used in this video, but I'm going to use this to put across the crank pulley and check some angles. So let's go over here to the truck, get set up with our gauges, and I'll show you how to use each one of them and measure your driveline angle. Okay guys, we're at the truck. We're set up to measure our crankshaft pulley to see if this angle that the engine is sitting matches the output shaft on the transmission. This is not a tutorial on how to use this, but I'll give you a quick rundown. Basically, you've got 2 buttons. You've got a power button and a hold button. We'll power it on, you hold it. It's going to give me an error because I'm holding it. Find something that is level and plumb, and I'll show you why we need it plumb here in a second. So I know that my 20-ton shop press is dead level. I've already checked it. Make me a liar. It is level. Sometimes this thing can move. Quick thing that you may want to know is this thing is magnetic. So if you set it on a table, make sure you wipe off any kind of metal shavings before you put it on there, because it doesn't take much to get this thing to move around. But you can see it's within level, within 0.1. You touch it and it moves. But I know my toolbox, and the reason you want to do this, you can zero it out just by momentarily holding the button. It will black out, come back on 0. But I don't want to measure it like this. I want to turn it up on my crankshaft pulley. So I know my toolbox here is 90 degrees. 90 degrees, if you can see that. So what I want to do is momentarily hold this. It's going to black out. I turned it off. Momentarily hold it. There we go. 0 degrees. So let me set you up on the tripod. And again, make sure the bottom of this thing's clean, because one little metal sliver stuck to it can cause it to be inaccurate. So let's zoom in just a little bit. I'm going to take my flat bar, stick it to my crank pulley, and I'm going to put this right where the bolt is on the crankshaft. So I've got 5.4 degrees, if you guys can see that. So I'm going to write that down on my whiteboard. Then I'm going to show you this type of measuring device. And it works, but you don't get the decimal point. You can stick it on here, and when it settles, let me look at it, it's on 95. So if you're not worried about the 0.4 degrees, no biggie. Now on the Tremec toolkit, it does matter. It's going to calculate that by decimal points. But if you've never used the app that's on your cell phone, let me go to the app and I'll show you. It's going to look like right here. It's going to say measure. The downside to this is it only gives you the angle. So this should be 5 degrees. Let me reset it. There we go. 5 degrees. So it doesn't tell me it's 5.4. So I'm going to go with the big box store. You can get these at Harbor Freight as well, but Home Depot or Lowe's have these Klein magnetic base digital angle finders. So the next measurement we're going to take is on the output shaft. So let me get you set up. We'll go under there and do that. We'll measure the pinion and see if our drive shaft is within acceptable range. And then I will use the phone to use the Tremec toolkit to take the measurements and see what it says. So stay tuned, guys. Okay, guys, now we're looking at the output shaft on the Turbo 400. Let's stick this on here. And it matches the crankshaft pulley at 5.4 degrees. So I'm going to attempt to take you out of the tripod without making you seasick, and we'll go back here and measure the pinion. Right back here. Let's measure the pinion angle and see what we have here. So 5.4, and then magnetically stick this on here. Oh, sorry guys. And be careful that this thing, you can't see that. The light's on my phone. And it's putting a glare on it. All right. 2.3 degrees. Make sure that's right. Check the other side. 2.2, 2.3. We'll call it 2.3. So let's go to the whiteboard and calculate. Okay, so we check the crankshaft pulley at 5.4, the yoke, or the actual output shaft at 5.4, and the pinion, if you look at it, it's actually tilted up. But from my understanding, even though this may be tilted up at 2.3 degrees, and this is also tilted down at 5.4 degrees, you measure the angle as if it's calculating down, because my drive shaft obviously is going to be running downhill. So 5.4 minus 2.3 is 3.1. Now, also from my understanding, anything at 3 degrees and less than 3 degrees is good. So would I worry about 3.1? Probably not. But before we end out this video, let me get the drive shaft installed, and I'm going to use the Tremec Toolbox, and we'll take a measurement here, the drive line, and here, and see if we've got the green light, if this is going to be good to go. Now, could my decimal points be off one or two ways? I could actually be at 2.9 or I could be at 3.2. Who knows? But I probably am not going to worry about that. So again, let me get my Tremec tool or get my drive shaft installed. I am going to be swapping out these regular bolts for nylock nuts and using a little bit of blue Loctite. So I won't torture you guys on a time lapse putting this in. Let me get this installed. We'll take a look at it. We'll do our measurements and we'll end this out. Okay guys, we're up on the truck again, and let's get our app. Bear with me because this is very difficult with one hand. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our Tremec app, Driveline Angle Finder. These first two, introduction, and it's going to tell you how the app works, what it's looking for. So hit next, again part of the introduction, hit next. Now, one key thing to notice here is if you've got a phone case that has dimples for buttons or raised portions, you want to find the flattest edge of your phone. Make sure you're not tilting it with one of these buttons. So I've got my output shaft, the yoke that goes into the output shaft on the bottom. So we're going to try to hold our phone up here and get a measurement. Make sure I'm on the flat spot. Let me see if I can get you up here where you can see. Let it stabilize. 4.2. So now the next measurement, I'm going to take on the drive line, and I'm going to go down to the center point, about the center line of the drive shaft, and take a measurement. Stabilizes on about 3.3, 3.4. We'll hit it right there. This one's tricky. One key thing to notice, that lock washer is setting off of this flat spot. So don't set it up on that and get a wrong measurement. So I'm going to turn my phone just to miss that lock washer. Make sure we're flat. Come back on light. Make sure we're flat. Stabilize. It didn't stabilize, but we're in the green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 more measurements. I'll take a screenshot of this one and see if we come out with the same average. So let's take a couple more measurements and we'll talk about what if your driveline angles are not correct. What can you do to fix it? So let me take 2 more, take an average, and we'll talk about that and end out the video. Okay guys, I'm by no means an expert at this, and if I said something wrong, please correct me in the comments below. But you know, our crankshaft pulley 5.4, output shaft 5.4, pinion yoke 2.3, 5.4 minus 2.3 gives me an angle of 3.1. I think degrees. I think the degrees you're looking for is 3 or less. I think I'm good here because this could be a point off either way and would cause this number to be okay, and I'm not going to worry about it. Going to the Tremec Toolkit app, when we were under the truck, when I was filming, here's what I measured. And I took probably 15 or 20 more measurements, and I got different numbers. But I was able to replicate it, and I'll show you how in just a second. But our first 3 that we took, it's 1.1, 1.3, and 0.8. It's pretty close. Angle 2 was really close at 2.4, 2.0, and 2.2. And then angle 3, 1.3, 0.7, and 1.4. Let me show you what I did under the truck when I had 2 hands and I wasn't trying to film, where I could hold everything steady. When I measured the output shaft of the transmission, I got 4.5 every time. I measured the drive line, or the drive shaft, 3.5 every time. So here's where I was having trouble because of those lock washers. I would have to tilt the phone, and you turn the phone just a smidge, and it's going to cause the decimal points to go off the scale. Or crazy, I mean. So what I did, I took a flat piece of steel, and I laid it up here where it wasn't touching those lock washers underneath, and I held it flat and held my phone on here so that I had a good flat surface, and it gave me the angle of this. Now I had this as my pinion straight up and down. I didn't measure off the drive line, I measured off the pinion. So what would happen if you had angles that were wrong? Well, there's a number of things you can do. You can add pinion shims to your under your leaf springs. You can get 2 degrees, 4 degrees to tilt your rear end. You can also, underneath the truck, if you can see up and under there, right there where my red transmission mount is, you can put washers right up under here. Whoop. Right up under there, and raise your transmission up. Now, if you had to go down, that's a different story. That's in your mount. But just so you guys know, as a part of my build, I used a 2-inch drop block with a 4-degree wedge. It has a 4-degree wedge in my drop block. So that's what worked out for my S10. 4-degree drop block. My transmission is on a energy suspension mount, and that's how I did it. So with all that, let's go back over here to the table. Next video, we'll be building the drive shaft safety loop, or we're not going to build it, we're going to build the mount for it. this is all together, and you can probably guess what I'm going to do here. So it is Summit, but that's what we'll be doing next video. So with all that, guys, if you like this kind of content, you like what's coming up, hit the subscribe button before you leave. Leave me a like if you like this video. If I said something wrong or inaccurate, I'm just giving you the numbers that I come up with and how I calculated it. So please correct me in the comments. I am very open to constructive criticism. I don't take anything you guys say as mean or cruel. I don't know everything there is to know about this. Do your research. There's some good forums out there that talk about operating angles and how to calculate it, but it can get really confusing. I did it as simple as I could figure it and tried to explain it to you guys the best way I could. So with all that, thanks for stopping in. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. Hit me up in the comment box, and we'll catch you in the next episode.